What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Behavioral Arts, and this is the video we've all been waiting for, Amber Heard's cross-examination, and there is a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to break down some body language, I'm going to break down some statements that she's making, I'm going to break down Camille Vasquez and some of what we're seeing with her. That's the lawyer who was actually questioning her. A lot of exciting stuff. Here we go.
Yes, I get up and wash my face, like most of us, and I put on right away a moisturizer that has tinted foundation in it. And then I put another foundation on because it has sunblock in it. I have a skin condition that my skin reacts to the sun in a bad way. So I have to wear sunscreen or sunblock. And no woman wants to walk around with a bruise on her face. And then if you want to cover up a bruise, you obviously put foundation first, concealer, and then on top of that, I used a bruise kit. Not a bruise kit, it's a theater makeup kit, a color correction kit, but I called it my bruise kit. Yeah, this is what I was talking about as a color correction kit. This is not obviously the exact one I used to carry, but I used to carry with me all the time. Sometimes this pink is sometimes a little bit more purple of a hue, and sometimes the kits are 3 colors. You can get them in 3 or 4 colors. Sometimes they have even more.
Okay, I feel like we're starting with a clip that's just a gift from the gods of behavior analysis. There is so much to talk about here. First of all, this is not cross-examination yet. It's just on day 16. They were still doing direct, and there's a couple of clips that are just gold. This is one of them. We are seeing a significant cluster of deception right there in the beginning. Now, I explain what this means in every video because I feel it's very important. A cluster of deception is multiple indications of deception that happen at the same time and are different from the person's baseline. So if I say something now and you think to yourself, oh, I do that all the time when I'm being honest, if you do it all the time, it doesn't matter. And if it happens alone without any other indications, it doesn't matter. There isn't a single gesture that we all do when we're lying, so we have to see multiple at the same time to raise the probability that there's some deception happening. Now, this particular cluster happens when she's talking about a skin condition where her skin reacts to the sun in a bad way. First and foremost, it's very rare for someone who has any condition to tell you that they have a condition without naming that condition. So it's much more likely that you would hear someone say, I have eczema, or I have whatever the condition is, especially because she's on the stand and she's shown us that she could be very specific about things. We see in just a few seconds how she's going to be super specific with the color wheel of the makeup palette. We see how specific she has been with carpets and drinks and all kinds of events. This is a strange place to not be specific and say, here's the condition that I have. She then mutters the next sentence out of her mouth. She says, reacts to the sun in a bad way. She drops her tone and she kind of says it really fast. And this is something when we do when we're not very confident in what we're saying and we just kind of want to get it out of the way. At the same time, we see a lot of eye flutters. This is where the eyes open and close like this very rapidly. Now, she's weird with eye flutters. She'll often go a very long time without doing any, and then in a small patch, she'll do a whole ton, and this is a great example. When we flutter our eyes, it's typically because we're trying to process information and the brain is slowing down, which happens in deception. We also see a slow blink as she closes her eyes as she's saying that, and her eyebrows kind of go down a little like this, consistent with anger. Now, slow blinks also happen in deception for 2 reasons. One, we don't want to face the reaction of the people that we're lying to. And second, we just don't want to face this thing that we're saying because we know it's not true. Now, again, keep in mind, some people slow blink when they're focusing on something, trying to remember something. So if it's alone, it's meaningless. But here, it's not alone at all. Immediately after the statement, we see her biting her lips really hard, and we see that upper lip going inwards with tightness there. Both of these things are consistent with trying to limit what we're saying, and it's often seen in deception. Remember, any tightness in the lips, whether it's contracted, retracted, or biting, is like, I don't want to be saying this. And finally, as she's saying it, she's doing a very classic Amber Heard thing, as her head is going back and forth like this, and it's almost really consistent with what she's saying. It's like, yeah, no, I don't have a skin condition. So I'm having a hard time with that statement. I'm wondering why she didn't tell us what the skin condition is, why she's being vague about something in a sea of being very specific about other things. The reason I believe she's saying this is consistent with something I said in my last analysis of her, which is that as part of her baseline, she likes to gain sympathy and pity from people. So I feel like this is something she's saying, like, I have a skin condition, I'm sensitive to the sun, feel sorry for me as she's going towards a story where she's going to be needing sympathy. We see something really interesting when she says, no woman wants to walk out with a bruise on their face. First of all, interesting choice of words. I don't think any man wants to walk out with a bruise on their face either, but she does this a lot where she reminds the jury that she's a woman, maybe to gain more sympathy, but the body language here is spectacular. We see her two shoulders slowly go up. This isn't a fast thing, as she tilts her head and looks at them. This is a classic display of innocence. We're exposing our neck like we're vulnerable. We're bringing the shoulders up. In fact, we see this a lot in cartoons when a character is trying to show innocence or like they didn't do something or they're trying to gain sympathy. Then as she introduces the makeup palette, she says, bruise kit, not a bruise kit. So her tone goes up as she perks up. Notice that eye flutter again, and she's really trying to correct herself on that and not call it a bruise kit. And there's a very good reason for that, and it's due to what she does for a living. As a lot of my subscribers know, I've spent a lot of time on television and stages all over the world, and Amber is a professional actress, and on stage, on television, a bruise kit is not a kit that hides a bruise. A bruise kit is a makeup kit that allows you to fake a bruise. So the moment she called it that, she instantly corrected herself and said, I call it a bruise kit. It's different than what a bruise kit actually is. That's just what I call this one, which I use to cover bruises. And instantly, her eyes shoot to Elaine. There isn't a pause, nothing. She just goes right to her own attorney, Elaine, and it's almost like, please help. We gotta move. We gotta keep moving away from this. The next thing I found fascinating is her use of the word obviously, which she says twice in that clip. The first one is, obviously you put foundation first, and the second is, obviously not this exact one. Now, obviously is a literary term that we use to preface a statement that we think everybody would instantly know. So like, obviously I'm sitting down now. Yeah, I obviously am. Everybody would agree to that. In both of these cases, I'm not so sure that this is something that's that obvious. You know, obviously you put foundation first. Does everyone know that? Is that like a known fact that nobody would contest? And second, obviously not this exact one. Well, how do we know it's not that exact one or the exact same version as that one? We don't have any way to know that. I believe she's using obviously here as a way to express how knowledgeable she is about makeup. And we see that in the way that she shifts to a tone of lecturing here. She's giving all these details, and obviously this, and obviously that, and some palettes come with 3, but some come with 4, or even more, and it's almost like an infomercial at some point for makeup. And I believe the reason she's doing this is to make herself seem like the makeup expert of that room. Like nothing she says about makeup and covering up bruises can be contested because she knows more about this than anyone. These things are obvious to her. And I think this is all part of her plan so that later when the other attorneys question her about covering things up with makeup, well, they're not the experts, she's the expert.
I was begging Johnny to not make me prove what I've had to sit on the stand in front of all of you and prove and talk about. I was begging not to do this and have to sit where I'm sitting today. I didn't want this. I don't want to be here. I didn't want to be there then. And I was trying to point out something to somebody who I thought did not have a firm grasp on reality.
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled. Good. Thank you.
I was trying to point out how absurd it would be for him to keep making me prove this by calling me a liar. I was trying to get him to not call me a liar because everything that I had said to date and everything I've said to date now is the truth. And I was begging him not to make me prove it, that there were photos, that there were witnesses, that there was my testimony.
There is something fascinating right there when the objection kicks in. We see a very quick fade of her emotions. She's in this emotional space and she's, getting all worked up. And the moment that objection comes in, it all fades really quickly. That's not really the way emotion works, especially when we're that worked up. Typically, it takes a moment. We stay emotional, especially because we still intend on telling the story. But on her face, it just goes away completely. Then when it's time to resume, first we see a lip lick. She licks her lips. And this is something that we see either when someone's stressed because the mouth dries up, or it's a grooming gesture. It's something we do to bring more color to the lips and seem more appealing. And what's really interesting is she picks up with the same exact words as the sentence she was cut from.
And I was trying to point out,
This is, to me, exactly like she's in a movie scene and the director yelled cut, because that's exactly what you would see in an actor. They're getting all worked up, they're doing their scene, director yells cut, they stop, they internalize, and then here we go, they might clear their throat, lick their lips, and jump right into it and pick up where they left off. In a real story, that's not the way it works. You don't, first of all, you don't fade away completely, you stay in that emotional place, then you keep going, the words wouldn't be exactly the same, so to me that really felt like this was a scene she was acting and the director yelled cut. I have a feeling you're gonna love this next thing. I use this a lot in analysis and I really don't talk about it often, so it's kind of like a little analysis secret. People signal to us their priorities in the order in which they list things. In an overwhelming majority of the time, we build up and we end strong. So as an example, let's say I'm telling you about a trip I took to the Bahamas a couple of years ago. I might say something like, the weather was great, the food was amazing, and I went swimming with sharks. So I build up to the most impressive one, which means that regardless of what an outside person might think, to me, to the person telling the story, the food was more important than the weather, and the fact that I went swimming with sharks was the most impressive thing of all. Because if I said that in the wrong order, it would feel anticlimactic. Like, I went swimming with sharks, the food was amazing, and the weather was great. It's like, wait, what's going on? Why didn't you end on the big one? So listen to what she said right there at the end. She said, there were photos, there were witnesses, there was my testimony. So she builds up to her testimony. That's the big one. Isn't that really strange? Wouldn't you assume that photos and witnesses are more important than testimony? And in a list like that, that would hold more weight? The way she said this signals me that she puts more importance on her testimony than photos and witnesses. And that is really telling, because either that means that she's severely over evaluating her own testimony, or she's subconsciously signaling to us that she knows that her witnesses and her photos are not that strong. Okay, now we're gonna jump right into the cross-examination and talk about not only Amber Heard, but also Camille Vasquez, who's doing the questioning, and the dynamic between the two, and there's some great stuff.
You told this jury that on this occasion, Mr. Depp was kneeling on your back.
That's correct, in the closet.
And you also told this jury that you wore a backless dress to the Mordecai premiere that very same night.
I did.
And you didn't show this jury a picture of you in that backless dress, though, did you?
I don't know what you mean, I'm sorry.
You didn't show this jury a picture of you at the Mordecai premiere wearing a backless dress, did you?
I haven't had the opportunity to.
Okay,
I assume you have it?
I do. Let's please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 1256. This is a picture of you and Mr. Depp, or the back of you. This is you in the backless dress at the Mordecai premiere in Tokyo, right?
That is correct.
You would agree that there are no bruises or visible marks on your back in this picture?
No, not that I could see.
So we start there with her saying, I don't know what you mean, to an extremely simple question. And then what's crazy about it is the lawyer just resays the question, changing one word, and now all of a sudden she understands what she means, which leads me to believe that she kind of understood what she meant the first time. So very often when we repeat a question or ask someone to repeat a question, this is a mechanism for buying time for us to think about what to say. So I feel like she knows what's coming and she just needs a little bit of time to think of an answer. This is further corroborated with what happens next. When the question is asked again, she looks over to the jury, and she does this a lot, by the way, and this is called a confirmation glance. She's trying to gauge their reaction. She's trying to see, do they think this is important? Are they excited about this picture? How are they feeling? Then she goes, I'm assuming you have it, as she nods like this and her shoulders go up. And this is an attempt to try to get ahead of it. Like, yeah, totally, you should show them. It's not a big deal. I have nothing to hide. There's nothing to see. And you're right, there's nothing to see. There's no bruising on your back. So it makes sense that the prosecutor would want to show this to the jury. But why are you saying, I haven't had the opportunity, but yeah, if you have it, go ahead. How does this play into your narrative? Then the picture is shown, we see her look straight down to it, and we see a little smirk. That is a misplaced smirk, because They've been talking about the bruising of her back. She's looking straight down. She realizes there's no bruising there. We see this smirk. I believe that's duping delight. Duping delight is a small smile that we see in people who are being deceptive, and it's connected with the excitement of getting away or the thought of getting away with a lie, and it can even happen when we're caught in a lie. Notice how sometimes if somebody catches you in a white lie, you might smile like, yeah, okay, yeah, I did it. And I believe that that's what we're seeing here. This next part was coincidental, but really telling. Somebody in the gallery sneezes, and she looks up and takes so much interest in this sneeze, like, what's going on out there? Because anything that'll distract away from this bold-faced lie that she's being caught in is interesting to her. And we see that a lot in deception. When somebody's being deceptive, and you can even use this in games of deception, like Werewolf or Among Us or poker, when there's something else that happens or the subject changes, someone who's being deceptive will embrace that change of subject, will embrace that new element, because it gets them to focus away from this deception that's stressing them out. So to her, this sneeze is really, really interesting. Then she's asked the question about the backless dress, and she doesn't even look at it again. She can't face it. She knows this is incriminating, so she just kind of goes straight from here to there without even looking at the picture again. So to me, everything that just happened is very consistent with someone who knew that they were going to get caught up in a lie and then got caught up in a lie. She knows this is bad. She knows she said something, and these pictures prove the exact opposite. And this is about to happen a lot. In fact, most of this cross-examination is Camille Vasquez saying, here's what you said, and here's direct evidence that that's not true. Now, as you all know, in my analysis, it's very important for me to be unbiased. When I point out behaviors in clusters, I often say, here's what it could be, but it could also be this. And I always encourage you to keep an open mind and say, listen, we don't have all the answers, and it's arrogant and silly for us to say, she's lying about everything, he's a saint and he's telling the truth about everything. There's nuances, there's gray areas, and almost everything exists in a gray area. So my position throughout this whole thing has not been that she's lying about absolutely everything. It's very rare that anybody lies about absolutely everything. It's really difficult to do. But when things like this happen, where it's not the behavior that's indicating a lie, but direct evidence that's indicating a lie, it's really hard to defend that. So again, am I saying that everything she's ever said is a lie? No. I think that some of what she's saying is based in truth or her perception of the truth. But in this case, you can't deny it. That's a lie.
Do you recall giving that testimony, Ms. Heard?
Yes, exactly.
So you had a broken nose, right?
That's absolutely what I thought.
You had 2 black eyes after this incident, right?
I did have 2 black eyes after that incident.
And you testified that you also had a busted lip.
That is correct. From December, yes, that's correct.
You testified that the lip wound kept reopening when you moved your mouth.
That's correct.
You also testified that you had bruising on your temple.
That's correct.
And bruising on your chin.
Correct.
You appeared on the James Corden show the day after this alleged incident, right?
I did.
And that was December 16th, 2015? Your Honor, I'm so sorry, but it's not published to the jury. If we may have it please published.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies. If we can please start that over.
Start it over, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's a photo of you opening your mouth on the right?
That's correct.
And again, a larger view of the same photo on the bottom
That's correct.
with a split lip.
You've seen pictures of it without makeup. Yes.
So you had a split lip when you
I
were
sure
moving
did.
your mouth that way
I sure did.
in those photographs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Before we analyze this response, let's talk about how she's doing overall in the cross-examination from a body language perspective. Because strictly from a body language perspective, she's actually doing pretty well. Here we're seeing some stuff we're going to talk about, but generally speaking, those clusters of deception aren't that high. There's a few, but not an enormous amount. But more importantly, we're not seeing a lot of that over-exaggerated emotion and this sort of drama and this emotional retelling. And I think there are 2 reasons for that. One is because she is not acting, she is reacting. She's being thrown all these things and she has to act really quick so she doesn't have time to go into that role and bring out those emotions. The second reason is quite simply because she's not giving testimony here, she's just confirming testimony. So a lot of these questions is Camille saying, do you remember this? And her going, I do. I did say that. And that's truthful. She said that. What she said may have been a lie, but the fact that she said it is truthful. So we're seeing a lot of reactive stuff here, not so much proactive. But here we start to see some interesting stuff. When she's asked about the broken nose, she said, that's absolutely what I thought, which is really interesting because it's absolutely, like that's a strong word, what I thought. But absolutely what I thought isn't absolutely anything. Might as well just say, I thought I had a broken nose. But during her testimony, she seemed very convinced that she had a broken nose. But here, she's sort of at the same time trying to make it like absolutely, but what I thought. Contrast there. Then with some of the other answers, we're seeing those flutters and a bit of hesitation that's out of place. But we're not getting an overwhelming amount of deception here because she's just confirming, yeah, that's what I said, that's what I had. It's just sort of, like I said, reactive. Then the question about James Corden comes up, and oh boy, is this a beautiful moment. The moment the Corden interview comes up, we see her go down with a deep exhale as she closes her eyes and she goes like this.
You appeared on the James Corden show the day after this alleged incident, right?
I did.
And that was
I did.
And that was December 16th.
This is unmistakable. She knows this is not going to be good. She knows something's coming. So she's shown the pictures where, you know, supposedly this is the day after. She had 2 black eyes, a broken nose, a split lip, and we see her on the interview and they play a clip, and then we see the pictures of her with her mouth open, and to anyone looking, it's obvious that her lip isn't split, but she alleges that it is. And Camille Vasquez does one of the most beautiful things that she does quite often, and it's psychologically so powerful. Notice how she never says, Ms. Heard, your lip is not split in this picture. She never says that. She never fills in that blank. She never provides a conclusion in this case. And she's going to do this a lot throughout her questioning, where with her questioning, she brings us to the conclusion, but she never gives the conclusion. And the reason for that is because psychologically, we accept and stick to conclusions that we came to ourselves a lot more passionately and firmly than conclusions that were given to us. When someone says something to us, we can question it. We go, do I agree with that? But if we're brought to that conclusion and we're the ones who decide that, we are a lot firmer in our belief. So for example, if I really want to make you see that a close friend of yours has an alcohol problem, if I just come up to you and go, your friend has an alcohol problem, you might go on the defense and go, oh, come on, everybody likes to have a drink every now and then and all this stuff. But if I say something like, when's the last time that you had to pick them up and drive them home? And they go, just this Saturday. And I go, okay, and how often does that happen? And you go, it actually happens quite often. I think I would say maybe once a week. And I just bring you to that conclusion where you go, yeah, you know what? I think there's a problem here. So again, she often brings us to that point, but never actually says the thing that we're all thinking. Speaking of Camille Vasquez, let's talk about right there when the video wasn't going as planned. Notice how courteous and polite she is to the judge. That snappiness that she has, that powerful warrior of a woman that we're seeing who's absolutely grilling Amber, and we're gonna see a lot of that coming up, vanishes, and we see a sweet little version of her who's super courteous. And it's not the only time we see this. Anytime she addresses the judge, there's even a point where she addresses a deputy sheriff, she's super polite, smiley, and kind. This contrasts so much with the side of her who's directly questioning Amber Heard. I firmly believe that this speaks to how much Camille connects with Johnny and really feels for him, and she wants to bring this really powerful side of her out to really get this woman. Amber brings out the worst in her. And I think this subtly plays to us as the viewer and to the jury to say, this is the effect Amber Heard has on people. She brings out the worst in people. And again, it's also very telling that this woman is getting very emotionally invested in defending her client. It would be very difficult to do that for someone that you don't really connect with.
You gave these pictures to People magazine after you publicly accused Mr. Depp of domestic abuse, didn't you?
I didn't personally.